I keep getting this kind of comment from folks. There is so much detail when I go out to paint. I get really bogged down in it, not knowing what or how to simplify. So I think this is an easier problem to solve than you might suspect. It can be overwhelming when we walk out of our studios with our plein air equipment and we go out into the open and we've got all this stuff going on. First thing is to find just one thing that gets your attention, one area that gets your attention. And don't argue with yourself. Just decide on one, because it's not going to be the last painting you ever do. You might have an opportunity to do several paintings in that area, but just select one. Just if you have to close your eyes like this and then open them, say, okay, that's it right there. All right, so you got your scene pretty much. The next thing is to find perimeters. This helps to simplify the finding perimeters. Now, if you have trouble finding perimeters and interpreting them onto your canvas space, a good way to do that is to hold your hands up like this and move your hands side by side or up and down until you can find within this little frame of your hands where you want the painting to, or where you want your interest in the painting to begin to end, side to side and top to bottom. And if you can't hold that in your memory, just get a piece of mat board or some sort of stiff material. Cut yourself out about maybe a 5x7 window and attach that window right up here to the top of your canvas. Attach it someplace so that you can stand back and look through it and find the scene that you're looking for, so you don't have to keep holding it up and the thing changes. So those would be recommendations I'd make to you for just getting set up for simplifying. Now, when you're looking through that window, you still see lots of details, lots of stuff. Change your viewpoint. You're going to have to forget what you're looking at and look at, first of all, well, I've got two suggestions I'm going to make for you. One is to look at it in terms of how can you combine a whole bunch of stuff into 3 simple shapes. I should say either 2 or 3. 3 is a good number. And then after you have you kind of mastered this way of simplifying, you can add more shapes. You could find 5 simple shapes. Or maybe if you're looking at a landscape that doesn't have vertical shapes in it, it's more horizontal, you might be able to divide that into 2 shapes. But let's say for right now, just to get you started, what we're doing here is solving a problem. We're not making rules, we're simply solving a problem. So find a way to group things so that they can create 3 simple shapes. So I'm taking this photo. There's lots of stuff going on in this photo. So what would be at least 2 ways that we could do that? One really good way is to allow or designate the stuff that's closest to you as a single shape. So the stuff that's closest to me, all right, that would be this frontal stuff with all these rocks and stuff, the tree trunks here, and the foliage that's a part of those tree trunks. I could designate that as a single space, and I'll just do that here, just a little diagram for you to show you what I'm talking about. And so let's just get a little bit of mineral spirits here. And it doesn't matter. This is not a color problem. This is simply teaching you a method. So okay, so suppose this is your canvas right here. Say something like that, and you're looking out. You've got your little viewfinder up there, and you're looking out, and this is what you see. You can then say, all right, this is going to be one shape, this stuff that's in front. So how does that appear? How would that appear on my canvas? So you just maybe block out an area that might indicate, all right, here's a group, there's a group of foliage, that's part of the shape. There's another group hanging down sort of like that. That's another part of the shape. All this is one shape as it goes over. Then you could come over something like this. This is still the same shape. And as you get over to the side where the trees start taking over, you don't draw trees. Don't draw trees. Don't draw foliage. You're simply looking at creating using all the stuff, grouping it to create one shape. That's it. And so we get about right here, the edge of that tree might be the edge of that shape, and then we'd get right here where these bushes are, that might be the edge, and then it goes back like that, and then it comes down a little bit like that, and then boom, 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 boom. There we have it divided into two shapes. And in case that is confusing for you, I'll take away some excess marks here to make it easier to see. There's two shapes. One shape, two shape. Now, we now could subdivide this shape into two more shapes. One thing always be careful about is that these shapes are never the same size. Have them varying in size. If they're the same size, it's going to create just a dull painting. That's it. So then what I would do is say, okay, what in space-wise, this stuff is closest to me. What is next closest to me? And I see here the river portion, or you might call it a plain. But this portion is the next thing I see that's behind this shape. So then I say, okay, then that would begin, that edge of that river begins about right there, and it kind of goes straight. Now I've got three shapes. Got this shape, I got this shape, and I got that shape, and they're different sizes. This is an interesting shape in here, and now I can go from there. So what do you do next? Then you fit. Don't look for details. You still don't look for details. Then start thinking in terms of value. What is in shadow? And mostly this stuff is in shadow. So if all of this stuff is in shadow, then that would be the next thing that you address. You would paint, you would block in all the stuff that you see in here that is in shadow, and we see a little bit of stuff there that is not in shadow. So you would take, I'm not going to go through that with you here, I'm just want to guide you as to how to go about it. Or you could just, for the sake of solving this problem, maybe not worry so much about that, but just squint your eyes and just paint what you see in value. You see darker values here. You squint your eyes, you don't see detail. You see this value all the way down. This shape is dark here, not quite as dark that. Then you see here this value is lighter, still dark, very close. You see a darker value here, a lighter value there. So you just do general value areas and don't try to do detail. Then you would do the same thing for the next area, the next shape. What values do you see? What colors do you see? Just focus on the major values, major colors, and then going into this shape. What values do you see? What colors do you see? Now, there you've simplified. Once that simplification's done, you can begin to look for specifics. So that's what we mean by going from general to specific. This is the first generality, three shapes. The second generality is how you would generally divide each of its shape into the images you see in their value range. And then the third division would be to go in and begin to add details or define where do you see little areas, little leaves that you'd want to put in, or specific rock divisions or specific foliage and that sort of thing. Now I'm not going to go any further with that because I think if you would take that instruction and simply follow it, I don't need to give you something to copy. The second idea would be very similar to this, but it would simply be to divide the space into shadow divisions and not in shadow divisions, and you would do the same thing. You would start out with the shapes like this, where you have the three major shapes, but what you would do then is to squint your eyes, and within those shapes you would say, okay, this is in shadow, so you make this all one value. You could tint your canvas for this, just use a tinting process for the canvas for this. This is all one value, and you're not thinking about color at this point. You're simply designating what's in shadow. I accidentally picked up a red there. It doesn't matter. Okay, you say, all right. As you move along in this approach, as you move along within those three shapes, you see this area right here is in shadow. That is not in shadow. This up here is in shadow. Still in shadow, and this part right here is in shadow. Shadow may be different, still in some shadow, and still in shadow, and as you move along, you see that the whole, don't want any value changes there. Don't want value change. This is the only part right in here that's not in shadow between those shapes. So as I move along, then I will find that most of what I'm seeing right in there is in shadow. And then if I look across in this shape, the only thing I see in shadow are the little rock shapes, so I might indicate those as being shadow. And then as I look into the space beyond into this shape, then I would indicate this is in shadow. And that little piece is in shadow like this. And then when you take that approach, divide it in 3 shapes first, then make a shadow and not in shadow division, I think you will find that beyond, when you reach that point, you have all this designated. And then you can begin to work. I would work first of all in the in shadow area, take it in the same process. Squint your eyes and just get value variations in the in shadow area. It's going to be about a 5 value range between 10, 9, 8, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, right in there. Maybe a little bit of 5. You're going to have value variations, but none of them will be any darker than the middle value. And then you'll have in these shapes, the not in shadow, those are going to be the values that would be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They're going to be lighter. Just have those, define those values within these areas, and then put in the details. Now, if you want to see more of that kind of thing, you would need to download one of our instructional videos. But I think if you would just take this process and just use this very simple process, you'll find that it's really, really easy to work within each shape, general to specific, and save your details for last, and then you will feel good about simplifying a cluttered composition. Hope you enjoyed this quick tip. If you have questions or a suggestion for a quick tip, leave us a comment right down here in the YouTube comment box. And take a trip over to DianneMize.com and look at all the things we have there for you, including full-length video tutorials. And while you're there, sign up for our newsletter so you'll always be informed of our latest adventures. Thanks for watching.